Hello there, and welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I will not be talking to Taylor Rockwell today. My co-host and I will be reunited on Wednesday when we do our big USA v Costa Rica preview. But before we do that, we thought it would be smart for the Total Soccer Show to get some input and opinions from people who aren't me and aren't Taylor, just to avoid creating that sort of echo chamber where our opinions converge. So today's guest, Rob Usry, is a guy we've never had on the show before, but have wanted to talk to for a while. Rob is a freelance writer, editor, and video editor. He does a lot of work for SB Nation, specifically with starsandstripesfc.com, that's the US national team website, and dirtysouthsoccer.com, which is SB Nation's Atlanta United website. He writes really good, insightful stuff. Rob is also a must-follow on Twitter. He's at Rob Usry, spelled R-O-B-U-S-R-Y, and he's reliably entertaining and thoughtful. Check his timeline for a Darlington Nagby pie chart and you'll see what I mean. So for today's show, I talked to Rob about the recently released US men's national team roster for the upcoming World Cup qualifying games against Costa Rica this coming Friday evening at Red Bull Arena and away to Honduras next Tuesday. We get into Arena's roster choices and the options now that he's chosen his roster, his likely tactical switch for the home and away games, and plenty more. In the back half of the show, we also talk about Atlanta United's inaugural MLS season so far, the impending move into the new stadium, why Yami El-Assad is Rob's favourite, and what to expect from Andrew Carleton in 2018. Here it is. So I'm joined by Rob Usry, and Rob, I've got one important cranial sartorial question to begin this show. Are you wearing a baseball cap right now?
I am wearing a baseball cap right now.
Yes. Is it a US national team, US soccer baseball cap, or is it an Atlanta United baseball cap, or is it C, other?
It is a U.S. national team baseball cap.
Yes, okay, so it matches your Skype profile and possibly your Twitter profile.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love it that you're not posing in the Twitter profile. That really is, you're committed to that baseball cap support.
I mean, I just love fitted hats. It's just one of my passions.
Excellent. I think Taylor Rockwell's also into that. I'm going to ask him about that off air. But since you're wearing the US cap, let's start with some US national team talk. So the 26-man roster, Bruce Arena cheating again, the 26-man training camp, I guess, was named for the US national team. You're a big Twitter guy. What was the reaction that you saw on Twitter?
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Like, my first impression was not really a big deal. I kind of expected DeAndre Yedlin and John Anthony Brooks not to be available, so I just had that stored away in my memory. But then you look at the reactions from all the people, and it's sort of like doomsday scenario where we got to win these games. We have all these veterans coming in. Bruce Arena's killing us once again. It's just it's hard to really take the response just because you have a certain sector of fans who are always overreactive and then some that, expect these type of things. So
did you get a lot of why have we got Chris Wondolowski? That's the thing I saw on my timeline a lot. And at this point, I don't even know how to respond.
Yeah, there's always a ton of that when he's called up. Sometimes I'm in that vocal minority or in that vocal sector of fans too, or wondering why he's gotten called up. But when you have 26 players and you look at the roster, like, I fully expect Clint Dempsey to be, that super sub guy off the bench. I don't see any scenario where Chris Wondolowski's coming off the bench anytime soon unless it's a late game where we really have to have a goal or something like that. So I'm not really worried about Wondolowski being on the roster at all.
My guess, and I think I do keep repeating this, but it's worth talking about again. My guess is that he's just a good dude, and like Bruce Arena trusts him, and he's got faith in him. So he's just a good guy to have in a 26-man squad. He's a good guy to travel with. Like, maybe he's friendly to people on the plane in a way that other strikers aren't. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, he seems like a great guy. I mean, I feel bad about him about trashing him on Twitter all the time just because he missed that one goal and he's honestly not very good and shouldn't be international quality. But I mean, he seems like a great guy to have in the clubhouse. And if Bruce Arena feels that way, I have to trust him on this. And
then my other take is that Bruce Arena said, I'll be calling experienced players. So this is the roster we kind of expected, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a do-or-die scenario. You have to win against Costa Rica, and you have to hopefully get at least a point in Honduras. These are important games. you have to go with what you know. I would love to see, a Weston McKennie or even a Tyler Adams get called up, but this is just not the place to do it. It's go with what you know, and Bruce Arena's been through these games before, and he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, do you know what? I was going to ask you that because I think when you and I first worked together was at Paced Soccer, and I was sort of introduced to you as the guy who had all these like cool youth national team videos. And there's like a Josh Perez highlight video and a Pulisic video. So when I see Bruce Arena calling all these experienced players, I always wonder, like, is Rob ever thinking, well, let's just throw Tyler Adams in there, let's give him a go? But you're not quite on board with that yet.
Oh, I mean, if I was the manager, I would have him starting in the lineup right now. I love him so much. He's just a great player. But
centre midfield or right back?
I mean, right now, right back is our biggest need, so right back would probably be where we would play him.
Yeah.
In the long term, I don't really like him at right back, but that's just me. But
yeah.
In my older age, I've gotten a little bit of logic. It's not good, but it's natural.
So real talk. I'd be excited to see Tyler Adams go out there at right back instead of Graham Zusi or Eric Lehigh. Would you? And I think I'm with you. I think if I was king for a day, I might just do it to see what happens. At this point, and I'm going to assume that you know a bit about Tyler Adams. At this point, do you think he could handle a game against Costa Rica, a World Cup qualifier? Would he come through that unscathed?
I have absolutely no doubt he'd be able to handle it. In my money, without all the hype or anything. I truly believe he's a candidate to be a U.S. national team captain in the future. He's got a great head on his shoulders, and he's really got a promising future.
All right, so there's an exciting future, but the present is Graham Zusi and Eric Lehigh. So no Timmy Chandler, which I thought was the interesting sort of omission from this roster, and he's not injured, so I think that sends a signal that he's not the guy that Bruce Arena is interested in.
Yeah, it was quite surprising not to see Timmy Chandler. You have to wonder if this is the last time, or we might not even ever see him again, especially under Bruce Arena. It's just
that's what it feels like, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just looking like that he doesn't fit in the plans. Maybe they don't think he feels committed to the cause, which, all the fans, most of the fans have believed that for years. So maybe Bruce Arena is just confirming that for us. As far as the current right back situation, it's very sketchy.
Yeah.
I think I put out a tweet during the Gold Cup saying if Graham Zusi's starting for us in an important game, I'm not going to support the team anymore, which was, obviously fabrication because it's coming to reality. But
yeah, that could be put to the test Friday night, I think.
Yeah, I was just having a little fun with that, but it's obviously looking like that's a possibility. I'm not sure how much they trust Eric Lehigh at all. They didn't really trust him in the Gold Cup, and Graham Zusi's, was preferred over him there, so I don't see why it would be any different here.
My read is Graham Zusi defensive positioning kind of not great. People seem to drift in behind him too many times. But then Eric Lehigh, maybe his passing, he kind of gives the ball away one too many times. So it's almost like Bruce Arena just has to look at the two and choose the lesser of two evils. And I think he'll end up going with Zusi just for international experience. Does that feel about right to you?
Yeah, the experience part feels about right. I'm not sure about the whole passing part. I'm not a huge fan of Graham Zusi going forward or defending, but that's just my personal preference. I don't think he's very good.
So neither way.
Yeah, either way you're going to be in trouble. So I guess you have to pick the guy that's been there the most.
So over on the left, we've got Jorge Villafana. And sort of it looks like maybe we're going to ask Tim Ream or Matt Beasley to be the backup. And DeMarcus Beasley, is also there. But as an Atlanta fan, I wanted to ask you, is there any sort of offence taken among Atlanta fans that Greg Garza is not one of the options?
Yeah, absolutely. From an Atlanta's perspective, Greg Garza's been ideal for us at left back. I can see why Bruce Arena wouldn't want to call him up, just because he's not a prototypical left back. He's more of an attacking player. He's always pushing forward. He's always looking to get in behind. So he's not that, doesn't have that patience to stay back and really play a solid defensive role. But
is it a skills issue? Is he just not good if someone runs at him, or is it just a sort of what he's into kind of issue where he just goes wandering and gets upfield?
Yeah, I don't think it's a skills issue at all. I think he's probably the most talented left back in the pool, but it's just a discipline issue. I think he's he has the mindset of going forward, sort of like DeAndre Yedlin had early in his career. So it's sort of that issue where he might get called out of position a lot. I think that's the biggest issue.
Okay, and then he hasn't got youth on his side like a young DeAndre Yedlin did to be like, yeah, I can figure this out later, right? Greg Garza's mid-20s at least at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Greg Garza is what he is. I think, honestly, on the national team level, he might be better suited as a late sub, as an attacking sub, as a flank player.
Okay. All right, two more omissions I want to talk about. First is Dom Dwyer, because I think when people think about Chris Wondolowski, maybe the guy they would have preferred, the more exciting guy in people's minds, is Dom Dwyer. Do we take any message from this in terms of Bruce Arena not selecting him for this qualifier?
I mean, the only message we can take is Bruce Arena is a knowledgeable fan of the game and is not a fan of Orlando City. I think that's the only thing we can take.
Is this some Southeast rivalry stuff coming out?
It's just a little joke. I think Dom Dwyer is definitely in the plans for the future. This one game, I think it was a decision between the super sub. If you want to take a Dom Dwyer and risk not playing him, or you want to take a Wondolowski who's a good locker room presence. I don't see a need to bring so many strikers just because you're going to have Clint Dempsey coming off the bench most likely, so he's going to fill that role. So you're kind of wasting a roster spot on someone like Dom Dwyer, who might get a little agitated just sitting on the bench.
Right, so there's no point taking him just to make people happy on Twitter on the day of the roster release, right? It's more important what happens on Friday and on Tuesday when we get to the action.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not worried about Wondolowski or Dom Dwyer being there. I think, right now the biggest question mark is between Josie Altidore and Bobby Wood, and who's going to play between them. And you have three quality strikers, and there's no really reason to worry about the guys behind them.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier, speaking of strikers, you mentioned that you seem convinced that Clint Dempsey's going to be the super sub.
Bruce Arena's had a interesting, away home formation change. At home he's playing the diamond, and at away he's playing like a 4-3-3 type of deal.
Yeah.
I honestly think he'll have Dempsey in the supporting role. He came off the bench against Costa Rica, I believe, in the Gold Cup, and played amazingly. And I think he'll do the same in these two games. All
right. Okay. So we're Team Dempsey, whatever happens, right? Off the bench or from the start, I'd be happy to see him.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter when he comes in. He's gonna, as long as he plays with that chip on his shoulder like he always does, he'll find a way to impact the game.
Yeah, no danger of that chip disappearing, I don't think. How about midfield? I'm always fascinated, especially now, by it seems to be Michael Bradley plus we don't know what, right? We don't know who his partner's going to be. I know you're a big Darlington Nagbe fan. I saw your pie chart tweet about whether Darlington Nagbe is in the US's strongest 11. Do you see Nagbe as a central midfield partner or a wide player for the US national team?
I think he's more of a wide player for the U.S. national team, sort of that left flank role.
Okay.
He's not a prototypical winger, obviously.
Yeah.
He likes to grab the ball, hold on to possession, and cut inside and link up with other players. He's a great fit for that diamond midfield where Bradley's holding by himself, and he has two other midfielders flanking him to play off of him. I think that's a perfect role for Nagbe.
And then what happens with Fabian Johnson then? Because he also would like that left-sided role. I feel like this has become the big US question is whether Johnson or Nagbe gets that left-sided role.
See, this is where I make a lot of U.S. national team fans mad, because I'm a huge proponent of playing Fabian Johnson where he's needed most, and obviously right now he's needed most as a fullback.
Yeah.
So the question becomes whether you want to risk or take Darlington Nagbe out of the lineup, or would you rather take another fullback out of the lineup? In my opinion, you want to play him where he's needed most, and you have the most talent in the midfield, so obviously you want to put Fabian Johnson back in the defense.
Could you see maybe Villafana at left back and Fabian Johnson at right back? I mean, it kind of worked at the World Cup, right, when he did it there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most logical use of Fabian Johnson right now, is because we have such a big hole at right back. I think Bruce Arena's been committed to playing Fabian Johnson in the midfield. I think this will be his biggest temptation to play Fabian Johnson in the defense. So it'll be very interesting to see what he does. Yeah,
because didn't we have that thing when Bruce Arena first took over? He said that he talked to Fabian Johnson, and Fabian Johnson had said to him, like, I want to play, but just let me know. Am I going to be a midfielder? Or am I going to be a fullback and just choose one? And it seems like they chose midfield because that's where he's appeared so far every time for Bruce Arena. So if we go with that logic that he has to be a midfielder, would you then pop him at right midfield so Nagbe stays on the left?
Yeah, I think that's the smartest thing. You're going to have Christian Pulisic at the attacking midfield spot, so that's locked up.
Yeah.
I think who are you risking on the right side? Maybe Alejandro Bedoya. I don't think you're going to miss him much. So obviously, if you can find a way to put Pulisic, Johnson, and Nagbe in the midfield together, I think that's the most obvious solution.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that. I'd be happy to see that. I'd also be happy with the Johnson at right back experiment. And it may be that what Bruce Arena sees in training camp over the next few days might persuade him to sort of take Fabian Johnson aside and be like, "Hey, do you remember that chat we had in December? We might need to revisit that and maybe see if you want to play right back today. Here's the number 2 shirt. See what you can do with it."
Yeah, my philosophy over the past year is just get Christian Pulisic and Darlington Nagbe in the lineup, and I don't really care about the rest of the 9.
Then magic happens. What about if that does happen, and as you said, you see Nagbe as a wide player, which I think I agree with. Who is Michael Bradley's central midfield partner? Is it no one? Is it just Bradley sitting as a 6, then 3 attacking midfielders ahead of him, and then 2 strikers ahead of him? Or do you want to pair him with like a Kellen Costa or a Christian Roldan or a Dax McCarthy?
Yeah, I think in the home game, you're going to see him playing that lone role like we have. I think ever since Bruce Arena took over at home, we've been playing the diamond, and then on the way, we've been playing with the lone striker. So when we go on the road like we did in Mexico, I think Kellen Acosta is probably the best fit right now. He had a tough Gold Cup, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I was surprised.
Yeah, the talent's still there. I think you give him the confidence and give him another chance to see what he can do. I thought he played really well in Mexico, and that was the biggest indicator that he may have a really bright future. So if he can handle that atmosphere, I don't see why he can't handle San Pedro Sula.
Okay, so yeah, for those, if anyone didn't follow that, then we're thinking like a diamond. I think you call it a diamond. I call it a 4-1-3-2 because I think of it as like 3 more attacking players ahead of Bradley. But we're basically saying the same thing, right? That'll be the home formation against Costa Rica. And then away, we maybe have to drop a striker, maybe to get that extra central midfielder in there. And you think it might be Kellen Acosta?
Yeah, my vote would be Kellen Acosta. Maybe Dax McCarty, just because he has that experience.
Yeah.
As far as home, diamond, 4-1-3-2, whatever. It's just the holding midfielder with Bradley with 3 guys running off of him. That seems to be the norm under Bruce Arena, and I don't see it changing anytime soon.
All right. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you wanted to talk about with the US-Costa Rica game before we move on to talk Atlanta?
I'm Team Josie Altidore.
Yes, I'm with you.
He has to start. I don't care if Bobby Wood's scoring 17 goals in the German Cup. Josie Altidore has to start.
My read is that Bruce Arena feels the same way, and it's only like certain sections of the US men's national team fans that don't feel the same way. And my guess is it's the people that don't pay close enough attention are the ones that don't want Josie Altidore to start.
Yeah, I mean, if you start talking about Josie, it's just a whole wormhole that you go down. He has his fans, but he also has a ton of critics. It's just baffling to me, but that's the way it is.
Yeah, so Josie to start. Okay, one final question then. You mentioned you prefer Dempsey off the bench, for like the diamond with 2 strikers. So who do you partner Josie Altidore with? Is it Jordan Morris? Is it Bobby Wood? I'm guessing it's not Chris Wondolowski. So is it Jordan Morris or Bobby Wood?
Oh, it's definitely Bobby Wood. I mean, he's earned it, but I'm talking more, if we play a lone striker, I think I would have to pick with Josie Altidore instead of Bobby Wood. I mean, that's probably a controversial pick. You probably get a lot of mean tweets, but that's just my feeling.
Fair enough. All right, yeah, the one thing I learned about Bruce Arena in the last go-round in World Cup qualifiers is that he was really into the idea of taking fresh legs, especially up to the Azteca. And it was really not about picking his strongest 11. It was about picking sort of whose energy bar was still at 100% was who started against Mexico. And I'm also wondering if we do see something similar away to Honduras. Like if there are guys who've put it all in against Costa Rica, maybe they just get kind of rotated out for people who are fresher to go in the next game. Do you think I'm reading too much into that? Maybe Azteca was a special occasion? Or do you think that's a possibility, that we see that big turnover between games?
Well, Azteca is a special occasion just because you have the atmosphere and the altitude, but I don't think you're off base at all. I think we could see something similar. I thought that was a pretty wild game, just a crazy formation, and I thought it came off just as perfectly as possible, and I would love to see something like that again. I mean, you mentioned Christian Roldan. I'm very excited to see him in the future. I don't know if he'll play or not, but he could be a perfect candidate to bring someone off in that game with fresh legs, and he can run around and win the ball and distribute the ball. I think he would be perfect for something like that.
I think the thing Roldan has going for him as well is it seems like he can play multiple positions, right? So he's an option at central midfield, he's an option wide right, he's even maybe an outside shot for right back. again, depending on what happens in the next week or so. So it's not impossible that we see Roldan at some point.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like he's like the MLS version of Fabian Johnson, so I think he has an extremely bright future just because of his versatility.
Yeah, all right, sounds good. Do you want to move on and talk some Atlanta?
Yeah, I'm always happy to talk about the best team in MLS.
Actually, I want to ask you a question about the fandom of Atlanta. So obviously they've only existed, or they've only existed on the field for this season. Did you have an MLS team before that, or were you just sort of sitting tight in Georgia waiting for that Atlanta team the whole time?
I mean, I've always been an MLS, or not always. I've supported MLS for a while, just because, in my opinion, as a national team fan, you have to be aware of the player pool and you have to know what's coming. So I've tried supporting teams before, but I just don't think it's that natural. I don't believe in just picking a team to support. It has to come natural. And thankfully, Atlanta finally got a team, and I had a real reason to support one. So I don't think it just came naturally.
So can I ask you, like, what has that felt like this year, just having an actual team that you had there? It sounds like, and from reading your writing, it really seems like you have a proper connection with that team and you're super into it. Is that literally unlike anything you've experienced before with a club team?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I came across soccer on TV, and Manchester United was always playing, so I supported them for a little while until I got older and kind of grew out of it. But yeah, Atlanta United is really the first club team I've really identified with and just had that natural connection with. So I think it's been really fun for me, as I've been a soccer fan for almost 15 years, to finally have a club team to die with, week in and week out. So it's been really fun.
And it seems like fun was the operative word, especially in the early part of the season. I watched quite a few Atlanta games, and they were really exciting to watch. They pressed high. It was like, real good stuff with Martino. And then it seems like, at least results-wise, it fell off a little bit in the last few weeks. But you wrote an article called "There's No Need to Panic," or titled, sorry, "There's No Need to Panic About Atlanta United." Could I ask you sort of first, why was there a need to write that? Were people panicking, and why were they panicking? And then sort of second part of that question is, why is there actually no need to panic?
All right, so ever since the Gold Cup break, the team hasn't really been playing great. We've been, scratching results out at the last minute, getting draws from last minute goals. It hasn't been that attacking style that everybody was talking about earlier in the season, or that, there was nothing special about Atlanta United. It was sort of just, a run-of-the-mill MLS team.
Was that a deliberate tactical change, or is it just that the energy had somehow gone? Are the players exhausted? Or do you have any read on sort of why that happened?
It's very interesting, especially on the road. It seems like Tata Martino sort of abandoned his all-out, pressing, and sort of developed a pragmatic approach just to get some points on the road, just because we were struggling so much on the road in the beginning of the season. And it just feels like the team hasn't been able to flip that switch back on and return to that all-out pressing and, exciting style.
I see. So once you decide not to go full intensity, maybe it's kind of hard to turn it back up.
Exactly. I think when the panic button was starting to get pressed was these last two games. We came off a 2-week break. We had a ton of time to rejuvenate and really get our energy about us, and we were playing two Eastern Conference teams who were frankly not very good. We should have wiped the floor with both of them, but they just came out so flat in both games and really struggled just to get 1 point out of the two games, and that's when fans were really starting to worry.
So let's name names. Who are the two Eastern Conference teams who frankly aren't very good?
Oh, well, DC United, who at the time was statistically the worst team in the league,
right?
But they did, in fairness, make some moves and have improved a little bit.
Oh, so you played them post-Areola? He was already there?
Well, we've played them 3 times this season and lost all 3 times, so that's a little bit embarrassing.
Okay.
Then we went to Philadelphia, who aren't very good either. I think they're 9th, and gave up 2 goals in the first half and fought like heck to claw back and just get a point out of that game, so that was a little bit worrisome too.
But these aren't the worst problems to have as expansion teams, right? I've seen expansion teams have much, much, much worse seasons. And I think, I looked at the table, Atlanta are still above that line, right? Ready to get into the playoffs. So I guess, is that part of the case for saying there's no need to panic?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing heading into the end of the season is that we're in the playoff position already. Then we have, 6 straight home games coming up in the brand new stadium. The fans have been brilliant all season. There's no reason to think they won't be in the new stadium, and it should be an incredible atmosphere. And I think with all these home games coming up at the end of the season and the great fans behind them, this should have some results coming our way soon.
So you're expecting like this great final stretch, new stadium, maybe up the intensity with all the fans super excited for the new stadium, and that should see you over the line into the playoffs?
Yeah, I'm not expecting us to win every game, but it should help a little bit, and it should be plenty to get us at least into the top 6 and get us to the playoffs. And once in MLS, once you get to the playoffs, anything can happen.
Well, I'm almost scared to raise this with you, but I'm kind of a believer in the new stadium curse, where teams often struggle in a new stadium because it's sort of unfamiliar and they don't know the dimensions of the field, and they have to sort of relearn all that stuff and kind of lose the home field advantage. Has any of that crossed your mind before, or have I just like sort of brought up some demons that you didn't want to look at?
I think as a fan of a team, you always have that worst case scenario in your head. I don't think anybody knows what to expect with this new stadium. They had an open training session about a week ago where the team came in and got a kick around the field, got a little bit used to the field, but I don't think that's going to be enough for when the whistle blows and the games are actually happening. So I think once that happens, anything's up for grabs. But this team has a ton of talent, even though they haven't lived up to that talent the past 5 games. But I fully expect them to turn it around, even if they do struggle with the home field.
Okay, sounds good. I wanted to ask you about Brad Guzan as well. How's he been playing since he joined?
Yeah, he's been fine. Atlanta United fans were a little bit worried just because he had such poor form with Middlesbrough in the Premier League and got relegated for the 2nd straight year.
Yeah, the triple nutmeg game. Yeah,
he had that one game against Chelsea where he was just looked awful, honestly. And I honestly wasn't a fan of spending money on a goalkeeper when you can use it on something else. But He's been perfectly fine for us. He's been a great leader at the back. He hasn't made any mistakes. He's made some great saves, and he's been worth the money for me.
All right, so if he has to play for the US over these next 2 games, if there's a Tim Howard adductor injury or anything again, or if Jared Watt shows up and Tim Howard gets scared, then we'd be fine with Brad Guzan starting in goal.
Yeah, it'd just be just like in Mexico. I thought he played fine in Mexico. He'll play fine in any other game. Every goalkeeper makes mistakes. For some reason, Guzan's have been multiplied, but just every mistake he makes seems to make some highlight reels. So it's a little bit unfair on him. I think he's a fine goalkeeper, and if he has to play, we'll be fine.
All right. Okay, final question. Who's been your favourite of the Atlanta United attacking midfielders? I don't want to include Joseph Martinez because I feel like he's the obvious answer. But of Almiron, Assad and Villalba, who's been your favourite to watch? Because I'll be honest, I often kind of, especially early in the season, kind of got them confused. I was like, oh, who's that exciting South American attacker? And then there's sort of 3 of them running around. So I wanted to sort of try and delineate the 3 and get a feel for sort of who's the favourite amongst the Atlanta fans.
Well, Miguel Almiron is like the most talented player on the team. He had interest from Arsenal before he even came here. For my personal opinion, I'm a huge Emil Assad fan. He's sort of that guy that goes under the radar, has great technical ability, does the little things. He's sort of our Darlington Nagbe a little bit.
All right.
So I'm always drawn to those technical midfielders for some reason. I have a certain type, but I think if you ask our fans, it'll be divvied between Miguel Almiron and Tito Villalba. They both have great talent. Both are young, both exciting. I guess I'm a deviant from those, and I like Emil Assad, but I think all 3 have fans in the fan base.
And looking ahead to, I know it's weird to look ahead to next season when we haven't even decided who's in and out of the playoffs, but does it look like those 3 guys plus Joseph Martinez, are they all staying? Are they sort of all in on the sort of Atlanta United project? Or is anyone making noises about sort of, stepping away?
Yeah, the only concern right now from our perspective is Emil Assad, just because he's on loan and there's not a sure thing that he'll be back next year. As far as, there's been some rumblings about Miguel Almiron being scouted by teams like Lille in France, but I'm not too worried about that. I think he still has one more year in MLS to really I think this was his introduction season. He's been okay. He's had some ups and downs. I think next season is really when he has his MVP caliber type season and really starts to draw interest from Europe.
Okay, so that's like a good and a bad thing for Atlanta fans, right?
Yeah, I think that's just the mentality that the club have had in the transfer market is buy young players who can come to MLS, build up their stock, help the team for a year or two, and then make money for the club. I think a lot of teams in Europe have that same mentality. So Atlanta and United are just bringing that mentality to MLS. I
can't let you go without talking about, I think I said last question maybe 10 minutes ago, so I'm sorry I keep asking questions, but I can't let you go without talking Andrew Carleton, because I know you're a big sort of, a youth player guy, and so I'm imagining that you're super excited about having Carleton on the roster at Atlanta. I know he's not going to play much this year. I know he's got the U17 World Cup coming up, but is there any expectation that maybe next year he starts challenging for, if not a starting spot, then sort of a regular matchday squad role in the Atlanta team?
Yeah, for my personal expectation, I fully expect him to be a huge part of Atlanta United next year. I honestly think he would have been, a semi-important player this year if the U17 World Cup hadn't been timed this way and they hadn't had to have prepared all season for it.
Yeah, it weirdly interferes with the player's season, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I fully expect that team to have a really great run in the tournament. So hopefully this season of forfeiting, MLS time is worth it.
Yeah.
He did get the start in the US Open Cup, and I thought he was brilliant in the start. He had one substitute appearance in MLS. He did okay. Anybody who watches him can see the talent is there. It's just about finding a way to get him on the field, and hopefully next season is that opportunity, and I fully expect it to be.
Can you give us a preview of sort of what position you'd expect him to play? Like, who would he... I'm assuming he'd be coming off the bench and subbing in, or maybe give him one of those attacking midfielders a rest. But like, which player is he most likely to step in for, and in what position?
So I think he said this in multiple interviews, but his idol is Neymar, and honestly, he plays just like Neymar. He's an inverted winger on the left side, so I think he would come in for Yamil Asad. If Yamil Asad can't find his way back to Atlanta United next year, I think maybe Carleton is his replacement. He's a very skillful and tricky winger. He cuts inside and does all that good stuff. So he's really unlike any prospect we've seen for the U.S. national team in a while.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch the U17 World Cup just to get a glimpse of what he can do. I've seen some stuff before, but the more I can see, the better. The more excited I am. All right, Rob, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today. Anything US national team or Atlanta we didn't hit on that you wanted to chat about before I bid you goodbye?
No, I think we hit it all. I'm very excited for the next month for both teams. It should be really fun.
Yeah, well, best of luck to Atlanta, and obviously best of luck to the US national team, and keep wearing those baseball caps.
I will do. Thanks for having me.
You gotta slice it.